everybody, and welcome to Pier 21 Realty's YouTube channel. I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm here with a very good friend and colleague of mine, Mark McDonald, who's with Loan Depot.
Hello, all.
Good to see you, man. Welcome.
You, man. Absolutely.
The reason we're here today is we want to discuss a topic that is really going to impact our industry on the real estate side, as well as possibly on the mortgage side. There is a current lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors. There's actually multiple lawsuits that's pending in court. And I wanted to put together a little series here on YouTube to go over exactly what this is, what the effects are going to be on all of us in the business, and how we can respond and how we can basically adjust what we do to it. That's where we're at. You know, there's some really interesting changes that could be coming if this case is settled or found guilty. And the way it's going, you know, it's hard to say where it's going to go. You know, there were a couple different hearings that have happened so far, and I have all the court documents, all the court dockets. And what I want to do is, the first episode, we're going to go over the background of the whole case. And then I'm going to take a listing agreement, a blank listing agreement, and show you how it affects us, why it affects us, where I agree with it, where I don't agree with it. But there is one disclaimer we need to make, Mark, right?
Yeah, no, definitely on the disclaimer side. But what, like, if you could, because a lot of people maybe in the industry, but they're not so entrenched in it like we are, where we see these kind of things. So I think to help out those that might not know about this case that affects people's real estate commission or could possibly do that, could you just give like a little summary so they know?
Absolutely. Well, let me give a little bit of my background. I haven't shared that with everybody recently. So I'm the broker owner of Pier 21 Realty. We're a real estate brokerage licensed here in Florida, North Carolina, and I just passed my exams for Tennessee. So we're going to be operating in Tennessee once I receive my license back as a firm. I also am the owner and operator of the Florida Real Estate School by Pier 21 Realty. So we're a real estate school licensed by the Florida Real Estate Commission, and we instruct people who want to get their real estate license, take their 63-hour course, pass that, and then get certified to take their state exam. We also help agents who are already real estate agents wanting to become brokers. So we teach a 72-hour broker course and certify them there. And in addition to that, we have about 31 courses altogether for post-education and continuing education. You guys can check us out. Pier21realty.school is all the school information, and pier21realty.com is all the brokerage information. So get that out of the way. I also wanted to tell everybody, we do have a disclaimer. You know, Mark and I are not attorneys. We're real estate brokers. We're professionals in the real estate industry. I'm a real estate broker. Mark is a loan officer, what is your exact title, Mark?
Well, I'm a mortgage broker, but I'm a branch manager with Loan Depot. And so I produce, and I also manage, have the privilege of managing some talented individuals. So I see a large volume of loans in many different states throughout the Southeast US.
Awesome, man. And I've been working with Mark, man, probably 15 years now, right, man? Yeah. We've been doing deals and working on things all together. So ins and outs, lefts and rights, right? Everything.
Yes.
So let me give you a little synopsis of what I'm understanding. And then I'm going to share my screen in a little bit with you guys. And we're going to go over a full background that I prepared. And also I want to share a listing agreement that conflicts with what's going on. And then I want to tell you guys how it's going to affect the industry and what my opinion is going to be after the fact, if this is ever taken to court and found guilty or settled. So basically, back in 2019, there was a seller and an group of attorneys that filed a class action lawsuit. And they filed the class action lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors. And eventually it was against I think there was like 13 or 14 multiple listing services. And the gist of the complaint is that the seller, they're basically claiming that there is a lawsuit against antitrust. And antitrust meaning that it's unfair that the seller is paying the buyer's commission. And I guess what they're saying, they're also talking about commissions. Now, commissions cannot be set. That would be price fixing. That would be a felony. That would be a federal crime. So when you deal with somebody, you can't say our commission is this. All commissions are negotiable. Some companies charge you a $5.99 flat fee. Some companies charge you a certain percentage, but they all value on a per deal basis. You can't say this is what we charge. That's not how it works. Everything's negotiable. I have deals I've done for very little. I have deals I've done for a little more. It just depends on what the work's involved and everything that's agreed to in the deal. And as long as you have two legal adults, hey, look, there's Escrow the cat, our little mascot. So she's our mascot in our office here. So as I was saying, commissions in that way are, they're not set, and you can't have them set a certain way. And it is negotiable. And what the lawsuit is saying, that there's a range that commissions are always within, which isn't true. I mean, again, there's flat fee companies, there's higher companies, there's lower companies. Depending on the service that you're getting, there's different options of what kind of listing agreement you have.
That's not what these guys are saying. They're saying
that's not what they're saying at all. And they're just saying what they want to say, and they're putting it in their case. That's their part. Now, the other thing is, the other complaint is that they're saying it's unfair that a seller is charged a commission, and then part of that commission is given to a buyer broker. So, for example, when you list a home for sale, in the contract, you have a percentage or a fee or a flat fee on the contract of what you're charging. Because some people charge flat fees. Some people charge a percentage. Some people charge a percentage plus a dollar amount for advertising costs. You have a multi-million-dollar property, you're spending $10,000 to advertise it. You got to work that in. You can't, that has to come out of somewhere, So either the commission side or there's going to be a charge side. That's an example of something like that. Now, what happens is you agree on a percentage with the seller. On the listing agreement, you have that percentage. And then the next paragraph, it tells the seller, we're charging you this. However, if there's another broker from another brokerage, we are, sharing our commission, and we're giving this much of the commission amount. And, that's been the real estate business forever. Escrow's on duty. You see her there?
So Philip, they were like saying though that in from what we were reading of it, that basically the board of realtors got together with a whole group of brokers and says, hey, let's just charge this amount.
Can't do it. I mean, that never happens. The Florida Real Estate Commission, any real estate commission, does not get involved in negotiations or commissions or disagreements with commissions between brokers and agents. That's something they don't get involved in, because there's an antitrust law. You cannot, it's price fixing. You can't meet with a broker and say, I'll take this area, you take this area, you charge this, I'll charge this. That's all illegal. You cannot do that. So what's happening is, what I'm afraid of, buyer brokers are going to be destroyed, because if this case gets settled or this case is lost, what's going to happen is the selling agent, the listing agent, the selling agent would be the buyer's side. The listing agent would be charging the seller a commission, but that would be only for the seller's cost. Now, the buyer's agent would have to charge the buyer a commission on top of all their closing costs and everything else they're paying for their cost. So where are you going to find a buyer to pay a percentage? 1%, 2%, a flat fee, 3%, 4%, whatever it is, because it's all negotiable. You can't fix it. So why would a buyer hire somebody to show them 20 houses and pay them 3, 4, 5, 6% when they find the house, when they could just pick up the phone and call the listing agent and they go see 10 houses, call each listing agent and go to each house and talk to each listing agent and not have a buyer's agent and save themselves all that money. You know how that works, because when you have a buyer, man, they're already coming with closing costs and down money, and it's tough enough now in the economy we're in, where people have to come with their money and their reserves and everything else. Imagine adding on a $10,000 commission or a $5,000 commission to that number. You have to season those funds. You have to have those funds verified. So it's gonna hurt the buy side. It's gonna hurt the sellers in the long run, because the buyers, there's gonna be less qualified buyers to buy their house. And that's what's gonna happen, I believe. So, just like the car industry, the wholesalers were removed from the car industry by Carvana, CarMax. Car dealerships, there were certain cars they wouldn't sell because they couldn't guarantee them. And they would used to sell them to a wholesaler who would buy them from the dealership, mark them up a little bit, and sell them on a secondary lot or secondary market. However, when Carvana and all those people came in, they eliminated that. They took all those cars and basically just retailed them, and they made deals with the dealerships. So it eliminated a whole segment of the industry. What I'm afraid of is this is going to eliminate the whole segment of buyer's agents. Who's going to hire a buyer agent, pay them a commission out of their pocket when they can just call a listing agent and not pay it? You know, that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, it would be a huge mess. I mean, buyers really do benefit with a professional that knows how to navigate that process. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I think we counted it up once before. There's over 110 people that play a role in a transaction, and the real estate agents are the kind of the quarterbacks with the lenders on how to get from offer all the way to closing, and to have in an industry setup where it discourages that professional to be in the transaction, either cost prohibitive because the buyers, typically are just, doing everything they can to get enough money for a down payment, let alone, to have to come up with an extra, well, you're talking like on a $9,000, let's say on a $300,000 purchase at 3%.
Yeah.
It would make a mess.
People don't have it. Average people don't have it, man. And you see that every day, in your deals. I mean, you're barely making it by now, getting them
So
into.
are they, is the MLS named in this lawsuit too?
Yeah, I'm actually going to list the MLSs. Two of the MLSs, I'm in 3 MLSs. 2 of them are named in it. And it's a $64 billion lawsuit. I mean, you have Realogy, Keller Williams, all the big brokerages are named in this, and they're suing them for $64 billion. They're only worth $6 billion. So either they're going to go bankrupt, or they're going to be put out of business, or they're going to be destroyed if this goes through. Now, I think there's merit for them. I don't think this case makes any sense. However, it's a risk they have to take to fight the case. And if they lose, they lose. Now, if they settle it, they can just pay some money and get out of it, right? And if they win it, which highly is unlikely, I can't see them fighting this thing. I can't see them doing it. Now, you also have the MLS's name. They're going after the MLS's now because the MLS's, when we list a property and go to put it in the MLS, we're required to pay a cooperating broker something. They can't tell us how much. You can pay them $1. No one does that. But you could pay them $1 or 2% or 3% or 1%. It's all negotiable, right? And you decide what you're doing on your contract with your seller. And I'm going to show you that in a second. So what happens is, the MLS forces the agent to pay a cooperating broker. If you don't do that, you're not able to list the property on the MLS. So they're trying to coordinate all these items in. Now, that's how MLSs work. They've always had worked that way since I've been in the business, since ever, as far as I know. And what happens is all those MLS platforms will have to change everything they do if this settles or is lost, because they're basically going to say you cannot pay a buyer broker. So if you cannot pay a buyer broker, every infrastructure of every MLS is going to have to change.
Wow. Interesting.
I mean, it's pretty crazy, dude.
It's worth following, man. It's worth keeping up on this.
I've been following, and I noticed, there's some people on YouTube and people out there that talk about it, but no one's really breaking it down so everybody understands it. Like, people talk about it, they don't even know what it is. The case starts in November. They just tried to get it dismissed, but the judge didn't do it. I mean, they with the summary judgment and stuff, and it's not going to happen. I mean, it's going to go to court, or they're going to settle it. And I just can't see them fighting it. It's too much money. It's too much, man.
So, like, the real estate market is the largest lobbyist, right? I mean, so they're huge lobbyists. You got some really high powered companies there that have enormous staffs of legal counsel and attorneys.
Yeah, but you got to look at the politics of it too. I mean, the politics, the administration of the United States government right now is not pro business. They're pro, everything's free for everybody, and they're trying to destroy businesses. I mean, they're just doing it. They're not trying. So, by doing this and taking on the giants in this industry, they're trying to restructure how this business operates. They're trying to restructure how this business works, how people make money in it. And I think they're going to just destroy half of it in the process. And I think they enjoy it from what I see.
Wow.
So let me share my screen. Let me go over this. Let's go over the background. In this video, I want to go over the background of everything and then show you guys an actual listing agreement and how it would potentially be filled out currently the way everything works. And one of the things in there, how they're saying that it's unfair and antitrust, and that sellers didn't understand what they were signing, which is it's impossible when I show you what I'm going to show you. So let's start. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to pull up. This is the background of the case. And I'm just basically going to read over what I put together here for you guys. Okay. So what I have here, and this is where it started. So on March 29th, 2023, okay, the Honorable Andrea R. Wood of the United States District Court for the Northern District granted class certification to 2 classes.
Basically Chicago, right? So Chicago.
Basically, yep. So specifically, the damages and injunctive relief classes in this antitrust class action against the National Association of Realtors and the 4 largest national real estate broker franchisors. So Realogy Holdings Corp. Now, Realogy owns multiple real estate companies. There's multiple well-known brokers are underneath that umbrella. HomeServices of America, Remax Holdings, and Keller Williams Realty, for allegedly conspiring to require home sellers to pay the broker representing the buyer of their homes and to pay an inflated amount in violation of federal antitrust law.
Wow. I wonder how they can even cut, like how they can even.
That does not make sense. And I'm going to show you why. So the first thing I want to highlight, this is what they're saying. They're saying they allegedly conspired to do this. Now,
But what if they were at a realtor convention and they all got in a room and somehow they
can't do it? That's against the law. But
like, is that maybe part of it, or
I don't know. I mean, I think it's very vague, and I'm going to show you why I don't agree with that. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer. Mark's not a lawyer, but I'm going to tell you in practicing this business and what we do, why it doesn't make sense to me. Now, on May 30th, 2020, the court appointed Cohen, Milstein, Interim, co-lead class counsel to represent home sellers in this litigation. October 10th, 2019, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a statement of interest in the lawsuit. They jumped on. Okay, so let's look at the case background. Okay, so on March 6, 2019, Cohen, Milstein, and co-counsel filed a punitive antitrust class action in the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Illinois, on behalf of home sellers who paid a broker commission in the last 4 years in connection with the sale of residential real estate listed on one of 20 multiple listing services, covering several major metropolitan areas in the Mid-Atlantic, Midwest, Southwest, Mountain West, and Southeast regions. Plaintiffs, home sellers who listed their homes on one of 20 MLSs bring this action against the National Association of Realtors and the 4 largest real estate brokerage franchises, Realogy Holdings of America, Remax, and Keller Williams, for conspiring to require home sellers to pay broker representing the buyer of their homes and pay an affiliated amount in violation of federal antitrust law. Plaintiffs allege that the defendant's conspiracy has centered around the NAR's, National Association of Realtors, adoption and implementation of a mandatory rule that requires all brokers to make a blanket, non-negotiable offer of buyer broker compensation. This is the buyer broker commission rule when listing a property on the MLS. That's the rule saying if I list a property on the MLS, I must pay a cooperating broker something. Doesn't say how much, it just says something, right? An amount. Now, the conspiracy, now again, this doesn't make sense because I'm going to show you on the listing agreement in a minute. This amount is already agreed to, initialed, and signed. So when you list a property, if you're charging somebody X and you're giving somebody half of X, it's on there. So I'm charging you client X. We're paying another broker if they bring it half of X. If another broker doesn't bring anything, we keep X, right? If we do the whole transaction. So it's all stated in there. So they're making it like this is like hidden. It's not shown. It's right on the contract. They know this going into it. So like the way this is laid out is as if it's like they didn't know what happened. So that's how it works. Now,
see, that's messed up. Like, given another market, okay, yeah, it's a seller's market since 2020, but given any other market, there's been markets where a seller's, God, man, they want to pay the buyer person to bring their, or the
And the
buyer
buyer's
broker,
closing costs to close
like
the
more
deal.
money. Like I've had my house on the market for a year. Please, anybody they have, here's a larger bonus. Bring me somebody. But yeah,
Don't
2020
pay the
it was the
buyer's closing.
sellers, right? Like,
But that's all negotiations. That's okay. So that's fair market, isn't it? I mean, we're in a capitalist world. We're in a country where you have the right to make decisions. If a buyer wants to, or a seller wants to give a buyer an extra $20,000 and they agree, they can. If the seller wants to give the buyer 20 grand towards their closing, they can. It's negotiable. That's how it works.
and it's ebb and flow. I mean, right now, okay, yeah. I mean, if you have a listing, you're probably, the most important part of the market, right? Because there's a lack of inventory. But given a new market, like it's because it always goes in cycles,
Yeah.
then the buyer, maybe all the commission should just go to the buyer and none to the seller has to pay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the next thing we're going to look at,
Wow.
like I just said, all this here, I'm gonna basically show you what this is about and how and why it doesn't make sense.
But this is a private individual started this class action lawsuit, and then just the Department of Justice
Jumped
jumped
on.
on saying, "Hey, this is of interest to us." So it's not really a government focused
Now it is.
attack on the
Now it
real
is.
estate market.
It
It's
became
a
government focus now.
yeah, interesting.
Okay, so
The MLS was established decades ago.
yeah, it's been like this since day one.
Yeah.
And this is how you create a fair trade practice.
Yeah.
This is how you couldn't discriminate, because if you have to pay the buyer broker, this creates the opposite of what they're saying. You know what I mean? They don't understand business, it seems. They're bankrupting everything. I mean, they don't understand how to make a dollar. They don't understand fair trade. Whatever fair trade is to them is whatever's fair to them. So anyway,
Interesting.
you have here, so the mandatory buyer broker commission rule ensures that price competition among buyer brokers is restrained because a person retaining the buyer broker, the buyer, does not negotiate or pay his or her broker commission. In addition, the seller's inflated commission offer cannot be reduced by the buyers or their broker. As defendants also prohibit buyer brokers from making home purchase offers contingent on the reduction of the buyer broker commission. Absent this rule, buyer brokers who would be paid by their clients and would be normally competing to be retained by offering lower commissions. That makes no sense, because a buyer's broker is paid by the selling agent, right? That's part of the agreement. That's what the seller agrees to in their contract. They're talking about renegotiating the contract after it's signed. I mean, I know our government likes to do that, but it doesn't work. Like that, for the government, the DOJ made a deal with NAR a couple of years ago, settled the deal. Now they're trying to reopen the case. The judges threw it out, told them you can't reopen a case that you made an agreement on. See, they like redoing things. They like screwing you after they screw you. So, I mean, they're going to come back and screw you again.
So this summary, Philip, is this you took pieces from like
this is the summary.
With a summary? Okay.
Yes, this is the summary of everything that's happened so far. And then our next video, we're going to go like on the first filing date. There's a 60-page document. It's the whole case. And on our second video, we're going to start at the top and we're going to go through that whole case, every complaint, every line of the case. And we're going to do that for each thing, the summary judgments, everything they did. I want to go through it line by line. And I want to show everybody and explain to everybody what's going on. So the average person knows how this works. And the average agent will know how this is going to affect them, however it comes out. That's why I want to do this. So now, this whole thing about negotiating a lower commission after contracts are in place. So a listing agreement's in place. The amount the buyer broker is being paid is already in place. When it goes on the MLS, that's shown to the buyer's agents. They know what they're making. It's all negotiated. You don't go back and renegotiate something that's already in place. They're saying buyers want to. Now listen, there is a buyer broker agreement. If I'm working with a buyer, I can charge the buyer 2% commission and get 2% commission from the buyer and also get another % commission or whatever they're giving me for the seller. There's nothing illegal about that.
Right.
If somebody will pay you a commission and you can negotiate it, it's legal. Right? So you can get paid by a buyer, you can get paid by a seller. If you want to do that, you can. Commercial deals do that. commercial buyers pay, and sometimes the commission seller pays too. It
In
just
every state, like you were saying before, we got on this call, but every state has its own way that they look at agency, fiduciary responsibilities. Like, are you working for the buyer? Are you working for the seller? Are you dual agent? Or like you were explaining.
Yeah, you know,
Um,
look, I just passed my exam in Tennessee. Tennessee has dual agency where you can designate agents to represent within the same brokerage. Florida does not. It's illegal. North Carolina does not. North Carolina doesn't have transaction brokers. You have to be a single agent, or you have to have different representation. Florida has no brokerage relationships.
Interesting.
Tennessee has, they're called facilitators. So there's different. Every state has different laws of how you operate. So you could do something in Florida that's legal, but it's illegal in North Carolina. You can't do that in North Carolina. It's just the way it works. The federal laws are the federal laws, but states have superseding, or not superseding, but federal law supersedes state. But states have their own laws under their practice, under their codes. Florida has Chapter 475. And the 4 parts of 475. And then like Tennessee, it's Chapter 62. No, it's the law is 62 and the chapter's 13, and it was done in 1973 or 79. I don't remember off the top of my head. And that's when that was done, and that's where all their laws come in. And it just depends on what you're doing. And so it doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to show you why in a minute. I think they're just throwing everything, and they're hoping that it just they can get through it, and they can convince a jury, of something that doesn't make sense. So they're saying now I don't agree with this at all. So here they talk about currently, okay, total broker compensation in the United States is typically 5 to 6% of the home sale price. It's not true. It's not true at all. You can look at the average commission on property, but again, that's price fixing. How could it be between 5 and 6%? Wouldn't that be price fixing? They're saying price fixing. And now with approximately half of that amount, and increasingly more than half, paid to the buyer broker. Now, I've never seen a listing agent make less than the buyer broker. They're saying, what are they saying? A broker charges 6, the selling agent or the listing agent keeps 2 and gives 4 to the broker. In 25 years in this business, I've never seen that. I've never seen that in my life. Okay. Now, I don't know what they mean. Increasingly more than half goes there. Why would half go to you don't even need a buyer's agent. The market was so hot. You put it on the market, 15 people call you to buy it.
Right.
You need a buyer's agent. You double-sided the deal. So what? Okay, wait. You know what? Hey, let me give you all my money. I'll keep 1% and give you 4 when I don't have to. Like this, that doesn't make any sense. The last 10 years, you didn't even need a buyer's agent. So first of all, that makes no sense. Now, let's look a little more here. Now, the defendant's conspiracy has kept buyer broker's commission in the 2.5 to 3. So they're saying listing agents kept the amounts lower to the agents on the buyer side, which is not true. Most of them are 50-50 splits. So now, again, even if it was true, it's not illegal. It's negotiated. Right. So when you're
what if they're talking about they had like some secret little meeting at one of the conventions and they all said, hey, we want to keep the commissions at this, and then that's what's going to come out in it.
But even if you did that, like, it's too big of an operation. You can't do that.
Yeah, across.
It's impossible. It's impossible. Now, could a broker do it with his brokerage? Probably. But not all these companies and all this stuff. Now, one thing here. So they talk about how they kept the range lower for the buyer broker. That has nothing to do with the buyer broker. The seller and the listing agent at the listing appointment negotiates the commission. So if I say, Mark, I'm going to sell your house, I'm going to charge you 5%. Mark, I'm going to give the selling agent 2.5%. So if another agent comes, I'll give him 2.5%. You say, okay, that sounds good. And you initial and sign the document, and we're going to list your property. So the buyer broker had nothing to do with the negotiation between me and you.
Right.
If I say, Mark, I'm going to list your house for 5%, I'm going to give the other agent 2. That's between me and you, not them. They have no say in that. So where does this where does it say the buyer has anything to do with this? The buyer's agent. Doesn't make any sense. So they're saying for many years, despite the diminishing role of the buyer brokers, due to the buyers independently in identifying homes through online services and retaining buyer brokers only after they have found the home they wish to buy. So now I see that. So buyer brokers, it's tough for them because 20 years ago, they had to go talk to the agent, go through the book, find a house. Now everything's online. So, a lot of times, when I deal with buyers, I put searches together. I find them the house. They don't find it on Zillow. They don't find it on Trulia. They don't find it on those sites, realtor.com. I put searches together. You see me do it. I put them together for the people. We go list the house. We get a list of houses. We go look at them. Right now, they find stuff on Zillow, but however, Zillow has properties that they're not qualified for. Some have HOPA requirements. So you got to be 55 and older to live there. Zillow doesn't sort that. Okay, the MLS does. So I'll put a list of properties together, show people 50 properties. Zillow will show them 100. 50 of them they can't go see because they're not qualified. They're not over 55 years old. Zillow's a joke. Zillow's the biggest fraud I ever met in my life. I mean, the owner of Zillow sold his house for $3 million in his estimate. So that tells you something. They're all a bunch of criminals, man. They rob each other. That's how I feel.
So even if, let's say, they got in this little secret room and did something to price fix or whatever, that may come out, or may not, or that might not have ever happened. But Keller Williams owner and the Remax old owner, are just owning a franchise. The real people in the infrastructure in those companies, aren't they independently owned and operated? And they have agreements with the MLS locally. So it's how, even if they got in a little secret room, how
you couldn't do it. I mean, no broker is going to risk. I mean, it's antitrust. You can't do it. You'll go to jail. I mean, you lose everything.
But even if they did, I don't even think they if they wanted to, they don't have control over the individual agents within each one of the offices. I mean, everybody's kind of like an independent contractor, aren't they?
Right, absolutely. Everybody's independent contractor.
If you want to charge what you want to charge, I mean, that as a real estate agent within one of those companies, you probably have the flexibility to do it.
I mean, listen, from the minute I was in this business, you never tell people that's my commission, that's our commission. No, your commission's negotiable. It depends on the work I have to do, how the deal's going to work, and what you're willing to pay, and what we can do. If a seller's not willing to pay enough of a commission, maybe it's not worth taking the deal, and you just don't take the deal. You move on.
Right.
A seller's more than welcome to sell the house on their own. But the average seller gets what, 12 grand less for the house if they sell on their own. That's the average. That's the number. That's a fact. So it just depends on what they want to do. And look, if people want to sell their house on their own, good. I mean, that's their right. They have a right to do it. People want to buy a house on their own. They have a right to do it. It's their decision, But this here, to me, is going to put a nail in the coffin. Like they're saying, they want to protect buyers agents. The minute you make buyers pay the buyer agents, they're dead. Because if I'm buying a house and I want to go see 4 houses, I'm calling each listing agent, setting an appointment, and going to look at it. I'm not paying nobody 2, 3, 4% to go show me a house. What are you, crazy? I mean, that's just reality, man. Reality. Just put them out of business. So in closing here, the conspiracy is inflated buyer broker commissions, which it makes no sense. Makes no sense. Which in turn has inflated the total commission paid by home sellers who have incurred an average thousands of dollars in damage as a result of the defendant's conspiracy. It makes no sense.
So basically sellers, or this seller is saying hey, I should never pay the buyer commission.
Right.
And this whatever
for the last 4 years
companies in this group of companies, kind of screwed us because they made an arrangement to always give buyer people our.
But here's the thing. Why would you sign an agreement saying it's okay, I'll pay you this and you could pay them that if they sell it?
Yeah, maybe they didn't think they had another choice, maybe. Or
no, it says right on there, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay anybody, but I can't put it in the MLS.
Right.
And that kept everything even. So, there's pocket listings, right? You can have listings and not on the MLS. People do that all the time. Sometimes sellers don't want to be on the MLS.
But they have the MLS have like agreements where if you're signed up, your company, that every listing has to go in there within a certain period of time, where you get fined and all that.
Yeah. And then also one thing, and see, this is where they force agents to be members. So, for example, I have Pier 21 Realty, right? LLC. That's my brokerage. My brokerage is with 3 MLSs. So when I have agents signed up under me, they got to join one of them. They cannot not join one of them. They have to be in one of them. Now, there are referral companies, right?
Okay, so if they have to join one, and in the agreement is that they have to offer the buyer thing, maybe that's how they're trying to.
Well, you have that. Now, if I wanted to have agents that weren't in the MLS, okay, let's say they're doing commercial, there's commercial waivers. They can only do commercial property. They can't do anything else. Now, also, I can open up Pier 21 Realty Referrals LLC, license that as a brokerage, and not join an MLS. And then people under that could be not in any MLSs. And they would be able to refer people, if they just want to refer, say they want to get a license, they want to be under that company and just refer for 25% commission. They could be referrals. So when you see companies out there have referrals, there's two separate licenses. One is with the MLS, one is not with the MLS. Now, I don't agree with that. MLSs should not be able to force you to have people in MLSs. If somebody comes in your business and wants to work for you as a broker and as an agent, and they want to do commercial real estate only, they should not have to join an MLS.
Right.
You should not have to set up another company, have a separate tax return, have a separate auditing, have a separate license, have separate fees, have separate everything, separate bank accounts, because they won't let you. Now, that's something they should look. That's a little weird, and it's always been that way too.
But you said that there's a commercial waiver, so you're saying because commercial real estate is put into other sites, not MLS sites, right? So it's like the MLS is like you don't go there to search commercial typically.
Right. There's commercial stuff in there, but not the majority.
Right.
There's not the majority.
There's like other places the commercial industry uses that
there's
are
other sites. Yeah, there's other sites and different things. They have commercial MLSs that are totally separate. So let's look real quick before we go to the document. I want to show you where the breakdown is, where you can see who's charged what, and you can see how it's worded. But the MLSs that are covered, okay, you have the Bright MLS, and they include Baltimore, Maryland, Philadelphia, Richmond, Virginia, and DC.
Wow.
My Florida Regional. This is one that I'm a member. Okay, this is including Tampa, Orlando, Sarasota. It basically goes from Daytona Beach over to Tampa down to Cape Coral, in that area. Okay, the 5 MLSs in the Midwest cover the following areas: Cleveland, Ohio; Columbus, Ohio; Detroit, Michigan; Milwaukee, Wisconsin; and Minneapolis, Minnesota. 6 MLSs in the Southwest that cover the following areas: Austin, Texas; Dallas, Texas; Houston, Texas; Las Vegas, Nevada; Phoenix, Arizona; San Antonio, Texas. The 3 MLSs in the Mountain West. Okay, these cover Colorado Springs, Colorado, Denver, Colorado, Salt Lake City, and Utah. Okay. And then MLS in the Southeast that cover the following areas: Fort Myers, Florida; Miami, Florida; Charlotte, North Carolina; Raleigh, North Carolina. So you're going to have Beaches MLS, you're going to have Miami MLS, you're going to have all the ones that are down in South Florida and Central Florida. Okay. So that's all the MLSs that are being sued. Okay. It's kind of crazy, man. So do you see how a lot of it doesn't make sense, but they're just like throwing it there? So I don't know.
It's the largest MLS in the entire nation, isn't it?
Miami is, yeah. And
Like as far as
Beach and Fort Lauderdale Beach is the second largest. So the largest and the second largest are both in Florida. Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So this here is the information on the background of the case. Okay. Now, if we come over here, I want to open up. Let me see. I think I have it right here. Okay, so this here. Put this out of the way. Okay, I'm going to close this out now because we don't need that anymore. All right, and I want to make this larger. Okay, so now what we're looking at here, this is an exclusive right listing agreement. This is an agreement you have when you're dealing with the seller and you're going to be listing the property exclusively. And on this agreement, the seller and the broker info, the dates of when it's going to start, when it's going to end, the property and the property description.
This one's specific to Florida, though, right? I see Florida.
Yes, this is specific to Florida. Tennessee's different. North Carolina is different. These are state forms. These are this here is created by the Florida Bar Association and the Florida Realtors. Okay, the FAR bar forms are what I use.
So,
okay?
So if I'm a seller and Philip, I have you over to sell my house,
yep.
I say, yeah, I want to do it. This is the form you whip out, and
This
then
is
you
the
start to
form.
go through
I
with me.
type it up. We sign it digitally. Take 15
Right.
minutes. I
And then
type it
this would
up.
be called going on the market or listing my house.
Yeah. So, I sit down with you. Okay, Mark, blah, blah, blah. Pier 21 Realty, your address, everything there. Okay, we agree on $600,000. Wonderful. You're going to accept cash, conventional, VA, FHA. Are you going to have a seller held mortgage, depending on what you're going to do? And then in here, you're going to have the broker obligations, multiple listing service, how it works. It explains everything right here, how it works. Right?
So placing the property in
Right.
the MLS.
Yep. And it tells you what has to be done. And then over here, we have the broker authority, what the broker is able to do. Is there going to be a lockbox? Okay. Is the seller wanting it not on the internet? Do they want it not on MLS or they can choose if they don't want it on the MLS here. Seller does not authorize broker to display the property on the MLS. You check that box. They may not want it on the MLS.
Oh,
Right.
wow. So if they're not on the MLS, then they don't have to
They
offer.
won't be on Zillow. They won't be on anything.
Yeah,
Right.
but then they don't need, they're not like
Right.
forced.
If that box is checked, you don't have to pay a buyer broker anything because the MLS is not making you, right?
To their lawsuit, then that's interesting.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense.
Like you're forced to do it.
Right.
You have the seller. I could choose, like, if I'm listing my house with you, I'm like, no, I don't want it in the MLS.
Right. Absolutely. And so there goes their argument right there. Right. So here, check if applicable. The lockbox. If you're putting a lockbox, the seller can even tell you withhold verbal offers. I don't want verbal offers, only on paper. They can tell you once I have an offer accepted, I don't want any more. I don't want to hear any more offers. They can check a box. Like this is what we go over with them. And then it gets into the seller's obligations, all their obligations for what we need to do. Right? That's their obligations to us. Then we have our obligations. Now, compensation. This goes to the right of the heart of what we're talking about. So it says right here, seller will compensate broker, which is the listing agent, as specified below, for procuring a buyer who is ready, willing, and able to purchase the property, or any interest in the property on the terms of this listing agreement or any of the terms acceptable to the seller. The seller will pay the broker as follows: 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%, 8%, 9%, 10%, whatever you agree on. If they have an additional fee, they can do that. Or they can say, look, I'm just going to charge you $7,000. So you fill out what you want, whichever one. So let's say you're going to charge them 5%. You put 5% here. Now, if it turns into an option contract and it ends up being like an option to buy for the buyer, you can charge 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%, 8%, whatever you want, you put in there. And then the last one is let's say we're putting it up for sale and it turns out they end up leasing it and not selling it. Let's say it turns into a rental. I'd put 10% there. So if you're going to rent the property, I'm going to get 10%, which is like 1 month's rent. It kind of breaks out as like 1 month's rent. And that would be if you lease it, it's a 10% of the lease to the on the date the seller enters into the lease agreement. That's just in case they don't sell it, they end up renting it, right? It covers you. So that's how that works. And that's what they're going to pay the broker. Okay.
Does that say though that where you have what?
Well, that's the next section, right? So remember what I said. You negotiate with the seller what they're going to pay totally, right? So
that's the total one. So like
that's
if
the total.
Like this example, 5%, but it could be
right. That's the total. That's the total.
Got it.
So anything in here is the total. Now let's look. Now this talks about retained deposits and how that breaks down, which is all fine and good. Now let's look at number 9. Cooperation with the compensation to other brokers. And this is a notice to the seller. It says notice to the seller. The buyer's broker, even if compensated by seller or broker, may represent the interest of the buyer's broker. Office policy is to cooperate with all brokers except when not in the seller's best interest and to offer compensation in the amount of. Okay, so unless it's not in the seller's best interest, we'll work with other agents. The other agents must get paid for that. Now, the other agent can have an agreement with their buyer for their buyer to pay them anything, $1, $10, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, whatever they want. There's a buyer agreement for that, right? Now, Most buyers agents don't charge a buyer because most buyers won't pay them, right? Because most buyers
don't
won't
have the
pay them
money.
because they know the seller pays, right? Why would a buyer pay them a commission, right? Now, here's where it is. If I'm charging 5% up here, I'll give them 2.5% here. Or you can give them 1%. You can give them $1. There was a broker in Tennessee. There was a company in Tennessee that had a problem with a Keller Williams brokerage. Hated Keller Williams. Like they had a problem. I guess he was there. He left. He opened his brokerage. He paid Keller Williams agents $1 if they sold his house, his properties.
Wow.
He put here, and in additional comments, he put, if a Keller Williams agent, $1, nothing you can do about that.
Wow.
Because you can't tell him he has to pay more. You know why? That'd be called price fixing. Right? So.
Oh, and then it says none of the above too, right? That's another,
Right.
like, they could just
Right.
choose like clearly to say.
But look here, none of the above. If this is checked, the property cannot be placed in the MLS. It says it right there. Right? So
Yep.
this one here is if they're representing as a single agent. Okay? This right here is if they're representing as a transaction broker. And this right here is if they're representing as a no brokerage relationship. You could pay each
Florida.
In Florida. Yep. Yeah, this is Florida. Strictly Florida is what we're using for here.
But is the other states that you're licensed in, are they similar to similar
Yes.
kind of?
Yep. Yep. Now I have to, for Tennessee, I'm still not in the MLS there. I got to get my firm license first. I have to review it all and make sure, but I'm not sure until I see it. Yep.
But like, if you can choose right there, none of the above, like how are you being forced according to that?
I mean, it says right here, you don't have to be on the MLS twice. It tells you. So I don't understand. Like, I'm telling you, I just don't know if they have the stomach or the balls to fight it. Honestly, like it's going to cost a lot of money. The lawyers are going to get rich off of this. I guarantee you that. You know. So and this talks about brokerage relationship, conditional terminations, dispute resolutions. I mean, this is just a standard. The rest of it, you know, and any additional terms. You know, any additional terms you have, and then you sign it and you return it to the seller. Boom, done. So
interesting. So like, really, I don't know.
Does that make any sense to you? I mean, how do you feel about it? Just looking at that.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't think that McDonald's should have gotten sued for, some of the things that they paid out on. So, I mean, I don't know.
They just got sued $5 million for a hot chicken McNugget. You see that?
Yeah, for their, I don't know all the details of that, but I mean, just,
yeah.
I don't know.
When when I get chicken McNuggets, I want them cold.
Or the hot coffee thing, where they got all that money,
when you go to the swimming pool, you get wet in the water. You know that, right? Don't jump in the water. You get swim. You're gonna get wet when you go in the water.
Yeah. It's like the iron or the blow dryer saying, don't put it in your bathtub. You wonder why you have to have in America some of these notices, but I find it really interesting, but is there another play going on or a plan to try to
Well, you know something, what I'm going to do with you guys, we're going to have some more videos. Now, the next video we do, I'm going to take the actual initial complaint and we're going to go through the complaint that was filed. That complaint was filed before the DOJ jumped on. So we're going to go through that and we're going to talk about that and go through and analyze it as real estate professionals, as mortgage professionals, not as lawyers. The law is the law. Things are weird with the law, right? And I don't know, man. I don't know how this can go, but I tell you something. If this goes and gets lost and it goes and gets settled, I believe buyer brokers are over. I believe MLSs are going to consolidate.
Wow.
And I think it's over. I think the government is impacting every major industry in this country. From food.
So this is a private person. They're just the DOJ or they're just jumping on to say like, hey, okay, if this really is going on, it has merit, but it didn't look like they're the ones spearheading it. They're not like really doing it.
They took it over, but no, they did.
Now
they actually filed another suit against NAR and NAR settled it last year.
That's the one
And
you were.
now they tried to reopen it. They tried to renege on the case. They tried to open it back up now that this happened. And the judge literally last week just threw it out, told him, no, you can't do that. You already made an agreement. You already signed, it's done.
So that's a better, that kind of
Yeah.
makes it like less likely that this is going to go anywhere, maybe.
I don't know. Listen, this is they're gonna fight it. The plaintiffs are gonna fight this no matter what. They're gonna take it all the way. I don't know if they might settle, but they're not, it's not gonna go away. It's not gonna get thrown out. I mean, they had the trials, or they already went in to try to get it thrown out. That's not happening. So it's either gonna settle or they're gonna lose. There's no, the plaintiff side is not backing down.
So like this isn't, in your opinion, you're saying this isn't good for buyer agents. This is only good for
It's not good for the industry.
sellers, but I don't think it really would even be good for sellers, really, because
It's not good for sellers.
as a seller want more restrictions.
But it's not good for the sellers. I'll tell you what.
Something, right? Why have a government agency or a lawsuit force your hand to say you can't do something?
Well, now think about this. If you go to the seller, I'll charge you 3%. I'll charge you 2%. Seller, I'll charge you 4%, whatever, right? Right? You can't have a fixed price. You got to negotiate it.
Right.
Now the seller is going to pay you 4%. Say, let's just use a number, 4%. Buyer's going to come to the house. Okay. Now the buyer is either going to have to pay their agent 2%, or they're going to have to pay the broker, the listing agent. They can make a deal with them to pay them too. Now the listing broker will make more than he would have made if he had an amount and split it.
Yeah. What an interesting, because
and here's the thing too. Listing agents, let's say a listing agent is charging 6%. Let's say the seller is agreeing to 6%. Now the listing agent is getting 6%. The buyer comes to the property and buys it. The seller is still paying 6%. You cannot legally tell the seller, no, you can't pay more than 3%. That's price fixing. So there's nothing saying it's going to save the seller any money. If a real estate broker negotiates 5%, and if you don't want to pay me 5%, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Right.
Or 4%. Sorry, I mean, you have the right to say I can't help you. So right. I believe the sellers are going to end up paying more or the same, and the listing agents are going to make more money. And the buyer agents are going to be out of a job because the buyer is going to say, okay, I'm going to go see these 4 houses. Call the listing agent on the 4 houses. Go see the 4 houses, buy one. Right? And the listing agent keeps all the money. They do all the paperwork. They could, in Florida, they could be a transaction broker. They can do both sides, right? They work for the transaction.
Yeah.
In North Carolina, they have to have a no brokerage relationship, right? In Tennessee, you could be a facilitator. So you would have to change from single agency and go to you got transition to a facilitator. And a facilitator is similar to transaction broker. So it just depends on the state. But at the end of the day, I think buyer agents are out of a job if this goes through.
And I don't understand why the sellers thinking this would be a greater benefit for everyone. And
because the lawyers are probably telling them that.
Wow.
And the thing is, if this case, they lose, it's $64 billion. Those brokerages are worth $6.4 billion. How did they get out of it?
Right.
They file bankruptcy and they laugh. They're not going to pay nobody. That's what's going to happen. If they lose, they're going to file bankruptcy and it's going to get wiped out of their record and they're going to move on. But the law is going to change the industry. I'm interested to see what happens with the MLSs. That's what I'm interested to see.
Very interesting.
So,
well,
that's where we are, bro. That's what it is.
Very interesting. Well, thanks, Philip. I appreciate you sharing all that info, man. Wow. I see the lawsuit and you hear other professionals in the industry kind of chatting about it, but to do an in-depth like this, that was very valuable.
Yeah.
Thank you tons for taking the time to do that.
And I want to thank everybody for sharing some time with us. I know it's a little bit of a dry subject, but it's very important to our industry and where we're going with it. Also, if anybody wants to get a real estate license in Florida, don't have to live in Florida, don't have to live in the United States, just have to have a social security number, green card, working papers. You can take a course, take a test online and get your license. Visit peer21realty.school. All the information is there. I also have a webinar It's relicense.school. It's a 12-minute webinar. Explains everything about getting your Florida real estate license. It also gives you a little discount coupon code if you decide to do so. And we teach our classes live and on Zoom, all internationally. And we have online modules. If you want to take courses at home, 2 o'clock in the morning, you log in, you take your course, you have 6 months to take it and get your certificate. And then you go on and take on your state licensing. And anybody buying and selling, visit pier21realty.com. Everything is on there. We have a list of the top 100 cities in Florida. And you can see every house on the market, under contract, pending, and what's going on out there. Pricing, price drops. You can log in there. You can like some favorites, and it'll do some searches for you. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to call us. It's 844-4PIER21. So it's 844-474-3721. Mark, how's anybody reach you if they want to talk about any loans, and what states are you representing?
Yeah, I have 9 states currently, as this was recorded in 2023. But yeah, if you're interested at all in a mortgage or getting a mortgage checkup at all, please reach out to me at Mark McDonald, so MarkMcDonald at loandepot.com. And my cell phone direct 954-826-9655. You'll see the info there at the bottom. I'd love to help give you a mortgage checkup, answer any mortgage questions you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for being with us, and we'll see you again. We'll be back, and we'll be going over the next topic in the first brief in this trial. And there's going to be 5 of them as of right now. Then as they go on and it comes out, we're going to be updating. And then if it does go to trial, if they're going to be televising this trial, we're actually going to be televising it live and following through it and commenting as the trial goes on. So it's going to be interesting to see how this affects our industry. And we'll go from there. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day. Mark, thanks for being with me, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. All right, bye, everyone.
We'll catch up with you guys later.